Shepherds of Men is a secular movement started by three men of faith. We wholeheartedly believe that when we get the men right, we get the world right. We believe this because we believe that men are created and called to be leaders, and we believe there is an alarming deficit of leadership in our world today.
And although the three of us have come from drastically different backgrounds, our core principles have given us a unified voice that is needed now more than ever to pave the way for a fundamental change in our culture.
We are quite literally calling men to something great.
Welcome to the movement. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hell, whatever time you're listening to this, hopefully you're kicking ass and taking some names. If you joined us in the last training, you got to get a little bit of information on what it looks like to have an edge when it comes to confidence. What we're going to talk about today is a little bit more along the lines of bounce. So we're going to stay in the confidence ethos or book, if you would like to look at it that way. And we're going to get into the chapter for bounce, or one of the pillars that props up confidence. There's four of them, like we've talked about before, right? And bounce is the second one that we talked about. Now, why did we choose bounce, right? And I'll preface, we're gonna split this into two different directions that we're gonna take bounce here. There's two aspects of it. One of them, bounce, is energy, right? So what kind of energy do you bring to the relationships that you have, to the room that you walk into, right? What is your energy level? That's what we're talking about bounce. If you think about people that, if you've ever played ball, they talk about play on the balls of your feet, right? Like, we tell, our kids all the time when they're playing baseball, our coach has got a really good cadence where he says batters in the box, and all the kids drop down, they go baseball ready. And they all say it at the same time. Right. Well, when they do that, they have to get into a good position to be prepared to bounce if they need to bounce. Right. They've got some energy about them. And then the other part of bounce is very literally the definition of bounce, and it's the ability to rebound. Right. So the ability to bounce back. Right. So we're gonna dive into those things a little bit, but just to preface on the front end of this, I don't know. And here's why it's important. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in a board meeting with some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life, but their delivery is absolute crap. They have got, I know that you remember this. We actually went to a conference, and I'm not gonna name plug here, but with some highly sought after coaches and influencers that were speaking on stage in a very large event in Nashville. And the first guy that walked out, incredible speaker, incredible bounce about him, incredible energy when he walked on stage, just made you not just hear him, but feel him when he walked on stage. The next guy that came out was an unbelievable just intellect. Like this guy knew his stuff, like psychology, all the way down to why we do what we do. And I mean, wrote a book that has been, incredibly influential for a lot of people. But he was the most mundane, just kind of guy that you've ever seen, right? And I mean, to the point where people stopped hearing what he had to say. I mean, we were looking around, and there were people looking around going, "What is this? Is this a setup, right? Like, is something about to happen? Like the lights are about to drop, the bass is about to hit, something crazy is about to happen," and it never did. And for about 45 minutes. For the first 5, people were like, okay, we're giving him a shot. And then once it was about 10 minutes into it, everybody stopped listening to him. There might have been a couple people taking notes and stuff, but why do I say that? Why do I bring that up? When you start talking about influence, right? Because that's the whole premise on what we're doing with the Men Reforged program. We're teaching men how to be men of character and teaching men how to influence other men, right? Because that's what we need in society. That's what we believe that we need. And if you don't have an energy or a bounce about you, you're not going to influence other people, right? Like now that doesn't mean that you have to be all over the place, energy through the roof where people can't follow you and you're overbearing, right? But like at least believe what you're saying to the point where people can feel you, right? Don't come out there and be like, we talk a little bit about this stuff in etiquette and body language and stuff, and that's why all these tie together. As Cam did a wonderful job in the last training, talking about how the ethos actually tie together to become the influential man that you want to become. But for this specific instance, we're going to talk a little bit about energy, and then we'll talk about bouncing back, right? And when you think about that, you think about, and I always go back to sports because I think that's where most men can relate to things. But some of the best players that you'll see out there can make a mistake and it lasts about that long in their mind, right? And if you can't see this and you're just listening to it, it's very minute, right? I heard a really famous speaker a while back that said something that hit me pretty hard. That so you can tell that you can judge a man's character by the size of the problems it takes to knock him off course. And what that means is how quickly do you bounce back from problems that happen? Everybody makes mistakes, and if you do anything great, you're going to have to step out. We talked about this last training about looking like a fool. You're going to have to risk looking like a fool to become great. But what that does is it allows you to learn how to bounce back, right? Like, hey, I'm going to make a mistake. I'm new to this. Like I'm risking looking like a fool in order to learn new skills. When I do make a mistake, I bounce back from it, right? Like I'm like, oh, that was me. And taking ownership, and that's something that's a totally different gospel that we'll talk about. Taking ownership helps you with being able to bounce back because you have the ability and gumption to go, that was me. That was my bad. It won't happen again. I'll learn from it. It won't happen again. So with that, let's start with the energy side of things. Let's start with kind of bringing I almost said bringing the pain. Cam, from an perspective, though, I mean, what's your take on that when it comes to confidence and bounce?
Yeah, I mean, dude, you hit it, man. And I'm glad you mentioned the piece about the fact that I think some people they hear this and they have this misconception that everybody needs to be high energy and in your face and da 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 da. We're not talking about your personality. Listen, you need to have a personality. You need to have an attractive personality, but everybody's personality is a little bit different. Some people are more cerebral. Some people are more charismatic, whatever it may be. But the fact is, regardless of your natural personality, you can grow and develop that into something that connects with people. And ultimately, it comes down to, like JP said, your conviction. Confidence will always come from conviction, and just from your belief in yourself and how much you want to deliver the message you have. Now, we're talking a lot about from a speaking environment, but we're just using an example there. This is every day. So, like, how do I want to convey myself to my kids and to my household? How do I want to show up, for my job or business? How do I want to show up in my church? How do I want to show up, at any other community events that I'm involved in where I'm serving? I want to be, and I believe any influential man should want to be, the guy that brings bounce to the room. We always talk about being a thermostat versus a thermometer, right? We want to be the one that sets the temperature of the room. And how do you do that? It doesn't mean being the loudest guy. Oftentimes that's quite different than what we're saying. A lot of times the loudest guy has zero confidence. And we've mentioned that a number of times. And they're trying to make up for that. But you can have a delivery. You can carry yourself differently. I mean, we could get so deep into this as far as body language, eye contact, tonality, inflection of your voice as you speak, hand move. I mean, all this stuff, but I promise you, when you have it, people know it. Right. So ultimately, I think for this particular, I think Josh put it in a great category. Energy is what it comes down to. Now, that energy could be, show up in a lot of different ways, but it is something you can sense, right? If you get around a fire, you can feel it because that's heat, that's energy, right? If you get around these massive transformers or electric stations or whatever, you hear them buzzing. Like you can, I don't know if you can feel it. I guess if you got close enough, you'd feel it, but it might be the last thing you felt. But you can hear it, you know what I mean? So like there's a presence there because that energy is there, right? There almost needs to be this hum that's coming off of you as a confident man, right? As you have bounce. And yes, I believe being on the balls of your feet. And that's a great sports analogy, but it's also, it's the way you walk. Do you walk on the balls of your feet or do you drag your feet? Are you walking on your heels? Are you heel toeing it all the way through wherever you're going? Or are you kind of moving around, bouncing around? Is your head on a swivel? Or are you down like this? I know the worst thing these days is down like this. That's no bounce. That is flat as can be, right? But even if you're just walking straight ahead, and man, when I'm walking, I'm like, because I don't know who's around me. I don't know who I might want to see, who I might want to say hello to. And it goes back to another principle that we live by, which is always thinking of others. My bounce is not for me. It's not like, hey, look at me, I'm bouncing, look at me, I got some energy. No, my bounce and my energy is because I want to bring something to the environment that I'm in. I want to increase everybody else's energy. So when I have extra, when my cup is full and I can pour out, it makes everybody else's day better. I want to be the guy that when I walk in the room, if everybody's having a shit day, when I walk in, they go, man, I feel better. I don't even really know why. I don't even know why, but probably it's because somebody came in and put me first instead of somebody else, instead of themselves, So there's so much. I mean, when you really start talking about this, it can get super, super deep. And I think it gets kind of swept under the rug a bit, or maybe just not focused on, like it's not that important, when really it's hard. There's really no way to rank, the ethos or even the different pillars under the ethos. And that's why it's an evergreen type system, is because they all play a piece in being an influential man. So it's hard to say, well, this is one of the most important pieces. Well, I can say the same thing about association. I can say the same thing about integrity. I mean, they're all the most important pieces. That's why they're all here. But there's something about a man that knows how to show up with a presence. There's just something about it that you will lead, you will guide, you will impact, you will influence people, individuals, groups of people, movements, whatever it is, when you have some energy and some balance about you.
Yeah, it's it's like the old saying everybody knows, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And that's a big part of it. And one of the things I wrote down that I got from what you said there, Cam, is right on point, is being infectious, right? And people think of infection as a bad thing, right? But being infectious, it's neither here nor there. You can be infectious in a positive manner, right? And to Cam's point, like you've been around people in the past that have energized you, right? Who charges your batteries? Like, who do you get around? We've talked about this in the inner circle side of things, right? Who challenges you and who encourages you to go to the next level, right? And to Cam's point, it's not a matter of being flashy and walking around like this and stuff, because those are generally people, if they're having to overcompensate, then they probably don't believe in what they're talking about, right? They probably have their own struggles within confidence, right? It's a fake facade that their confidence is. But because you can look at people that are just really, really confident. I wrote down convicted, right? Because that's a big thing that you can tell a big difference in with people. When you're talking to somebody that is absolutely convicted in their thoughts and what they're talking about and what their delivery is, there's a different energy that emanates from that person, right? Like if you listen to Jordan Peterson, he's not like, let's go, let's get it, kind of thing. He's very calm demeanor, but the energy that emanates from him whenever he's talking is from pure conviction on what he believes. He's done enough preparation, which we'll talk about in the next training, but he's done enough preparation to create an edge that gave him an advantage in the conversation, and he knows it. Because he's convicted, which in turn influences the other person that he's talking to. This is what we talked about. We talked about this yesterday whenever I was having a conversation with Cam, is one of the most depressing things for me is the fact that the debates are dead today. It turns to slander, just ridiculous statements, telling somebody they're a bigot or a racist because you don't have a good rebuttal and stuff like that. And it's unfortunate, right? Because the art of debates really came down to conviction in your ideas. It required you to be prepared for the conversation that you were about to have, whether it was a presentation or a dissertation or whatever it is that you're delivering to the person that you're talking to. And a debate wasn't intended to make the other person feel bad. The debate was to determine who was more influential in the conversation, right? Like who had the more influential argument in the conversation, right? And that's where we have got to get back to as a society, because the benefits of that are great policies, right? The benefits of that are, great programs that are created out of things like that, because we start to go, okay, wait a minute, he's got a point. Maybe that does make sense. Maybe that is why we're in the position that we're in. But now we just go, oh, well, you're a racist, or you're a meanie head, or whatever it is, and just some dumb shit that's not beneficial to society whatsoever. So having a bounce from an energy perspective, when we're talking about energy, is how convicted are you, right? And I want to touch on one more thing, Cam, that you stated that I think is incredibly important. And one of the mentors of ours, says all the time, when we get home, we set the tone, right? As a man, right? Is your family getting the best version of you? Or when you get home, have you got your ass kicked all day long because you weren't prepared for the day? You didn't act on the day acted on you. And when you get home, you're like, oh, I just want to drink a beer and sit on the couch. I'm not, and that's part of the bounce too. And whatever you got to do to fix that. And I don't care if you do get your ass kicked all day long. Mm-hmm. If you have to stop, as one of our mentors used to tell us all the time, stop up the road, give yourself a second to recenter, re-energize, whatever it is that you have to do. And you need to figure that out. You need to figure out what works for you, get it done, and give your family the best version of yourself. Just because it's 5 o'clock at night doesn't mean that they get the leftovers, right? And that's not fair. I'm being vocally self-critical here, because there are days where I get home and I'm just like, I'm just done. Like, I am done. I don't want to make any more decisions. But that's not fair to my family, which is by far the most important thing that you have. And if you don't have a family yet, then the people that are around you, that are close to you, or your inner circle, they should get the best version of you, right? They should get that bounce. They should get that energy that's associated with the best version of yourself.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, this topic, as we're talking about it, I am getting more convicted about how important it is. And I'm so glad that we were given this as part of our, when I say given, like, for anybody that knows us, we believe that the ethos that we have in place is something. We got very strong messaging through hours of prayer and delineation, and like just figuring out what needed to be in this program. And we don't think any of it is on accident. Any of it is filler. It's all intentional and important. But when you talked about infectious there at the beginning, JP, I'm sitting here thinking, man, I'm trying to spread this energy virus, like I'm trying to spread it everywhere. And it depending on the environment, like you said, if it's coming home, and you just took the words right out of my mouth, your family should not get your leftovers. That is not just unfair. It's fucked up. I mean, and I'm guilty. I'm so guilty of that. And I have been so many times. But what's important to remember, guys, and I'm kind of all over the place here because there's so many thoughts going through my head on how important this is, but we want to lead. We always talk about men are leaders. Whether you want to be a leader or not, you were created, you were designed to be a leader. The very first place that you have to lead, it is required of you. Other places, it's not necessarily required. At home, it is required. You have to lead your wife. You have to lead your kids. That is what you were designed for. That's what you were put here for. It's what you were created for. You have to lead. That is the most important place. So no matter how much of a badass you were in the gym this morning, no matter how much of a badass you were in your business or at your job today, when you get home, you still haven't played the most important part until you got there. Now it's time. Now it's time to play the single most important leadership role that you have in your day, which is with your wife and with your kids. And I know it's hard. I'm telling you, I get it. Yesterday, I was up at 4:45. I'm doing my Bible study. I went to the gym. I get back home. I help get the kids ready. I get the kids to school. I'm on the road all day, driving all over the place, working. I'm spent. I get home and I'm like, we got a new patio that we did the last couple of weeks, and it's really nice and relaxing and it's peaceful and it's the sunny outside. I'm thinking, I just want to chill for a minute. And my kids go, Daddy, will you come jump on the trampoline with us? Internally, and I'm not proud of this, but internally I'm like, right? And that's awful. It's an awful thing to think. But because I have such a responsibility to you guys and to JP and to the message and what we believe, and to my kids and my wife, I'm like, yep, let's go. Dude, I bet we spent an hour, at least it felt like it, on that trampoline, bouncing up and down. But I remember not too far into it, I had this moment of clarity as I'm watching us. I'm like kind of stepping back, looking at me and my two youngest boys, and we're literally like playing this rough game. I don't even know. It's kind of like Ring Around the Rosie, but you're bouncing up and down, and I'm making them go higher and all this kind of stuff. Man, they are laughing their asses off, and I'm laughing at them, and you can just see pure joy in their face. And I'm thinking, how special is this, man? Like, how I almost missed it. Like there was a voice in my head that didn't want to do it. Not because I didn't want to have fun with my kids. I was just tired. We don't even use the word tired, but I just wanted to rest for a minute. And then I go, man, I'm so grateful that whatever was in me, whatever kind of conviction was in me to stay accountable to my word and to lead my family, I had that balance. And this maybe sounds like it's kind of off topic, but it's not, because I have to come into my home with confidence. And I have to have that energy when I come into my home. And I have to do the same thing in every other environment. And like JP said, maybe that takes some programming before you get there. But you know how you talk to yourself in the mirror or in your head, or you play some music before you hit the gym because you want to show up with some energy at the gym? You know how before you go into work, maybe you have to have some self-talk, or you have to have some meditation to get your head right, or you have to have some good music to lift you up, make you positive, so whatever it may be. It's because you want to show up with some energy. You don't think that that's where it stops. Like on the way home, dude, whatever you got to do to clear your head, clear your mind, clear your heart, pray, listen to some praise and worship music, listen to some fired up music, whatever pumps you up. Think about your kids, whatever it may be. Think about your wife. Get yourself excited about being home and now being able to play the role that you were actually created to play. All that other stuff is important, but man, this is it. This is the number one place. So we got to do it. We got to do it, dude. I'm fired up about that, because as you're talking about it, I'm just thinking there's been a lot of conviction within me over the last even 3 or 4 days in this realm of understanding where my priority as a leader, as a man, is within my own home first. Then all the other stuff falls in line. And if you don't have that right, I guarantee you it's not working the way it should be working.
Yep. And there's no big trophy for that. You're not going to be an influence. I mean, I don't know. You might be able to become an influencer by taking care of your family and stuff. I don't know. I hope that there's more influencers that do. And the sad truth of the matter is, it's the long-term play that's not glorified as much as it should be, right? And that's where we've got to get back to a society that values the family unit. And even if you don't have a family and you're listening to this as a guy, learn how to get excited about stuff, right? Like, and if you're not excited about stuff, then you are living a very sad life, my friend. There are way too many things out there to get excited about, and way too many opportunities. You live in the greatest country on this planet, and you serve the greatest God to ever live, right? The only God to ever live. Like, I don't know what more you need to get excited, but if you need some help on how to get excited and what to get excited about, you feel free to email us, shepherdsofmentn@gmail.com. You hit us up. We'll give you some reasons to be excited if that's what you need, right? We have no problem with that. So, and I think that we touched on the energy thing. Hopefully that you get it. If you don't, go back and listen to it again. But it's very important that you show up as the best version of yourself. And without bounce, you're not going to, right? And by bounce, we mean energy as far as that stuff is concerned. Now, the other side of bounce is the ability to rebound, which I think is incredibly important too. Because some of us just like want to sit around and be victims. Like how often are you a victim? How often are you sulking and stuff? How often are you just poor pitiful me walking around because something went wrong or whatever it may be, and it's a natural tendency. It's a lot easier to do that. It's being a victim is incredibly easy. That's why I have such a gripe with this society that's just like, everybody wants to stand up and be like, poor pitiful me. It's not fair. They don't like me because I'm transgender, or they don't like me because I'm a man, and men have it so hard because blah blah blah. Dude, cry me a freaking river, dude. Get over it, man. Like, here's the difference. High achievers, and I'm just going to speak for men in general. High achievers, whether you talk about business, you talk about sports, you talk about whatever it may be. What's funny to me is that the problems, the trip ups, the failures, whatever you want to call it, that they experience don't go away because they become very good at what they do. They don't go away. If anything, the trips are bigger. But the difference is it doesn't affect their whole damn day. Like that's where we have got to get to the point where it's like, when you mess up, it should take up a very small portion of your day. If you mess up and it jacks you up all day long, then you got some work to do. Now, the good news is you can fix that. The good news is you can fix it. You know how you fix it? Mess up more, because you start to realize that you're not going to die, right? You mess up more, you start to realize, okay, all right, it's cool. I tell my son that all the time. He's learning in baseball right now, and I've got one in soccer. He'll give up a goal. He plays goalie. He'll give up a goal, and he'll be like, I'm like, dude, flush it. Yeah. Right. And this is kind of a vivid thing here that my coaches tell me all the time, but he's like, flush it. Where'd that turd go? Who knows? But it ain't here no more. I know that. It's gone, right? We're on to the next play. You can sit there and allow what you messed up to affect your next play. You can allow the fact that you showed up yesterday and your family didn't get the best version of yourself to become a victim and cry about it. No, well, I don't do it right. I'm no good at this, blah, 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 blah. Man, screw that stuff, dude. You are a man. Step up, poke your chest out a little bit, have some etiquette about you, get some body language right, and say, you know what? I messed up yesterday, but I'm going to kick ass today. I messed that meeting up, but I'll tell you what, the next time I do it, I know what I'm not going to do. It's all about the mindset that you have associated with failure. And there's one of the things that we've talked about before in some of our trainings. It's called the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. And that is the biggest difference between high achievers and people that accomplish at a high level and people that don't. You look at high-end athletes, man, like they have a growth mindset. If they mess up, let's do it again. If you look at a professional athlete that is very, very good at what they do, if they mess up, they ain't letting somebody else take the next rep in front of them. No, we're going to do that again. We're going to do that again. Run it back. I want to do it again. And the ones that are the real professionals, the ones that separate themselves from everybody else within the professionals, won't end on a bad note. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it again, because they don't define themselves by the failure. That failure is an opportunity to get better. So the ability to bounce back, and by bouncing back, if you throw a bouncy ball, you don't throw it over there and then it kind of sits for a minute and sulks in the fact that it hit the wall, and then it gets on the news and it talks about how it was disrespected and how they should have stuff for free and they should never have to touch a wall again. Man, that ball hits the wall and it bounces back immediately, right? It takes the impact and it bounces back. That's how we have to be about everything that happens in our life. That's how we have to be about failures. A failure is a very small portion of your journey, and you're going to have failures. So you might as well get your mind set on that. Like, it's going to happen, right? But how do you overcome them? How do you respond to those failures is far more important than the failure that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And, there's so much you said there too. And I think I heard something just a couple days ago. It was actually from 50 Cent. Believe it or not. And he said, depression is a privilege. And at first I was like, what is he talking about? And then they got into it and they had these other commentation come in and talk about it or whatever. And I realized, like, you look back in the day, like depression is like this huge thing now. They said something like 500,000 therapists around the country or whatever. And listen, I'm not putting down any like real issues that somebody's dealing with, PTSD or like legitimate depression that somebody's dealing with from a very traumatic experience or whatever. But I do believe strongly that we are so quick to jump on this depression train because it's a privilege. We're so freaking bored. We have so little focus on our goals that anytime something's not going our way, we're depressed. And, bouncing back, I think one of the biggest pieces of bouncing back is actually understanding what the goal is. What's the mission? What's the vision, right? Because you can develop this mentality of when you get knocked off track or you make a poor decision, whether it be something you did or circumstances or whatever it is that gets you, out of focus or off track with your vision, then you immediately come right back to it. And so you can stand back up or whatever it is and get back on track and keep moving forward again. We do this all the time with our kids. I think as men, JP used the example of baseball, and I was thinking the same thing. My kid plays Little League right now too. And last game, he hit the ball. He got thrown out at first and he came back to the dugout and he was crying. And I walked over there. I'm like, bro, what are you crying for? It was a good hit. It was a good play. It's no big deal. Like, this is a normal baseball play. You're going to get thrown out at first sometime. And he won't say anything for a minute. Like, he's got to deal with it. But he was crying and he was dealing with it and he wasn't telling me. And then after the game, he told me what it was. It was that the first baseman was blocking the bag. Like, he couldn't run through first because the guy was standing in front of it. And I went back and I just so happened to be videoing that at bat, and he was 100% right. I was wondering why he didn't run through. It's because the guy was standing in front of the base. So he was pissed because he couldn't do what he knew he was supposed to do. Here's the story. Here's the message. Here's the moral. When he got back up, I told him, I was like, look, bro, it doesn't matter what happened. It's over. It's on to the next one. Your team needs you to perform. You're one of the best hitters on the team, which is a whole nother story. It's just glorious. Like, you're one of the best hitters on the team now. And when you go back up to bat, you need to be thinking about hitting that ball, not thinking about getting out last time. Right. So here's what I'm saying. It's easy for us to do that with our kids, but are you doing that with yourself? I'm quick to tell my kids, man, get up, shake it off. Right. You're not bleeding, or you are, but if you're not bleeding that much, it didn't hurt that bad. That's a good boo-boo. All these things that are good. They're important to develop the mentality of a winner. But are we doing it to ourselves? When we get knocked down, when we get a no in sales, when we get, turned down for this or that, whatever, when you're, if you're single and you're out trying to find your wife and you're not having much luck with that, like, are we getting mentally off track and we're allowing it to affect our next rep? Or are we going, hey, no big deal, what I learned from it? And JP said something else about, this is the visualization I got from it. Yes, you need to flush it. Yes, you need to forget it. But here's what I would recommend is flush it over to somewhere where you can analyze it later. Not right now. But when you have a minute later, go back and don't overanalyze it, but just take a quick look and say, okay, what could I have done better if there was anything? If there was anything that I could have done better, I want to learn from that. I want to learn from that failure, but then I'm done with it. Right. So the only reason I would compartmentalize it for a second is so I can go back to it to check it out with no emotional connection to it. Right. And then I can get, I can escalate myself, escalate my game, no matter what arena that's in. But you have to develop this mentality of, I saw this survey or something the other day, and it said, how do you respond to failures? Or how do you respond to things not going your way? And it was all these options that were just so freaking weak. And then there was one in there that says you get more entrenched. And I'm thinking, that's me. Like, when things don't go my way, I get pissed for a second. I compartmentalize whatever didn't go right so I can look at it later. But then I am immediately back on the horse. Let's go again. Let's go again. Let's go again. Right. And again, it's easy to tell your kids, get up and go again. Get up and go again. And I think that's good. But do not get in the habit. Do not fall into the trap of going, I understand this mentality because I always tell my kids to do it. Yeah, but are you doing it? Are you doing it with yourself?
Yeah, that's a great point. Right. I mean, it's like we talk about all the time, what you do speaks so loudly that what you say I cannot hear. You can tell your kids all day long. And I think that, for me personally, if you don't have a gym routine now, like you don't go to the gym regularly, start. And not just for, to develop muscle and try to look better and stuff. There's two things that are directly correlated to what we're talking about right now. One of them is energy level, right? If your energy's down, get active, man. Like, get active, get your ass moving. Like, do stuff, man. That's where your energy level is gonna start to increase, right? Your metabolism goes up, your body uses oxygen more efficiently. It's gonna be better for you from an energy perspective. But the other part about it is bouncing back. You are intentionally failing in the gym if you're doing it right. You are intentionally putting yourself in a position to fail. Now, some of you that may not be familiar with the effects or the benefits of that may look at that and go, well, why the hell would you want to do that? Does that not affect you? Does that not make you more depressed? If you're failing all the time and stuff like that? No, it does not. It makes you more resilient. What it does is it makes you understand that you might miss that weight, but it doesn't mean you never do it again. Could you imagine going in there and saying, oh man, I want to squat 500 pounds, and, you're right at it, and you go down on 500 pounds, you come up and you get stuck and everything, and you set it back down. Like, what do you do in that situation? Do you go, I'm never doing that shit again? I didn't get it. I'm never doing that shit again. Or to Cam's point, do you get more entrenched and go, okay, what can I do to get it? Where did I get stuck? Did I get stuck in the hole? Did I get stuck at the lockout? Did I not have my back right? Is my form shit? Like, how do I fix it so that the next time I attempt it, I've got a better chance? I have the edge. I've put myself in an advantage in that situation. And I'm using the gym as an analogy because it's a pretty simple analogy that most people can understand.
Yeah, and it is simple. And here's something else too. If you really want to think about how much this affects your whole life, just consider what Josh just said. If you reach failure in the gym and your mentality is, I can't do this, I'm done. Okay, so let's just assume you approach life with that mentality. So physically, you're never going to be healthy. Like if you will not move your body and seek failure from a weight training perspective or a cardiovascular perspective, you're as healthy as you're ever going to be. And by nature, you're going to decline in your health because you're not willing to be proactive about your health. Let's go to relationships. When you were looking for your wife, did you ever have any girl? I know y'all are a bunch of big shots. Did you ever have any girl turn you down and not want to go on a date with you, or not go on a second date or whatever? Did you just say, well, I must be gay, I got to start looking into dudes? No, you just, like you said, screw that girl, I'm gonna go find another one, there's a better one than that, right? So if you're not resilient, if you don't bounce back, then you're single the rest of your life, or you start batting for the other team, which I would not recommend. Let's go to spiritual life. You ever go to a church and you're like, man, this ain't my jam. Like, I'm just not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. So I'm just never going to go to church again. Do you understand how much limitation you just put on your spiritual growth by never associating in a church? Like, just because that wasn't the one, you got to bounce back and let's go look for another one, right? You can talk about this with what you're taking in with food. Like, I don't like the way that tastes. It's healthy. I'm never going to eat anything healthy again. Well, you're going to be a fat ass, right? So sales. I go in one door and the guy says no. I go in the second door, the guy says no. I go in the third door, the guy says no. You just say, well, I must not be any good at this. I'm done. I'm never going to sales. If your career and your income is based on sales, you're going to be broke. But the truth of the matter is, if you can't sell yourself in any environment, then you're going to be broke anyways. Because I don't care what you do. If you're an engineer, if you're a salesperson, if you're a doctor, if you're a freaking lawn care guy, you got to sell yourself to people. You got to be able to connect with people. And if you can't do that, you will be broke. So there's no area in your life where it's not important to bounce back. And to this point of hearing this, you may not have thought about it that way. But now you're understanding, from something so simple to something very significant, it's the same mentality. It's the same resilience. It's the I am not letting life act on me, I'm acting on life mentality.
Yeah, and let me tell you something that I hope is very freeing for you, because this was something that was a challenge for me, because I grew up with somewhat of a fixed mindset. Is everybody that you see that's achieving at a high level, the reason that they're so attractive to other people is because of their story of overcoming what they had to overcome to get there. Because for me, for the longest time, I believed that really wealthy people were just inherently wealthy. Their families had money for years. There was a luck factor involved. They just, they did things right and kept wealth in their family. Athletes were just inherently good at what they did and stuff. And it wasn't until I got to, a little bit older age that I started to realize that these people are so attractive because their ability to bounce back drove them to heights that most people won't see, because they're not willing to bounce back. They're not willing to do the things like what Cam just said. You mess up a couple times, it's like, oh, this is not for me. Hey, it was hard to breathe. I'm all breathed up, right? And we're being silly to a certain extent. But the fact of the matter is, when you put it into ridiculous terms like that, you start to understand it's no different in areas that are not silly, right? Like, it's not okay to sit back and go, oh, I can't get a girlfriend, I don't have it together, I'm just depressed. Man, hey, that's an easy out, right? Yep. Like, you had a girl break up on you, had a girl cheat on you, whatever it may be. Yeah, it's tough, and it should be tough. It's meant to be tough. You know why? Because God put it on your heart to make you better. But if you don't respond to that, then it's a wasted event, right? It's a wasted failure. In that situation, use it as fuel. There's a lot of bad shit that happened to me growing up. Like, there's a lot of bad shit that happened to me, and I'm not going to go into the details. But you know what I did with it? Instead of sulking in it, and I'm a depressed guy, and I've just had, it's just been, unfortunate for me growing up and stuff like that. I use that stuff. Like, I've had people ask me in the gym, like, who hurt you, bro? Like, who hurt you? Because when I go in there and I work out, I use it. Like, I'm in the gym, like, when I'm working out, even if I don't have anything like on the forefront of my mind at that time, I'll fabricate shit. I used to do that when I'd play ball. I would fabricate stuff about the people I'm playing. Dude was talking about my mom. Like, dude, whatever you need to do, but use the failures that happen in your life to take you to new heights. Those are stepping stones to ascend to who you should be and who you are called to be. Cam, I'm gonna start wrapping things up. We went a little bit long on this one. Anything you want to add at the end here?
I think something so practical for people to remember from what you just said, if they just want to be able to kind of recall that on cue whenever, is losing is learning and failure is fuel. You know, anytime you're encountering that, losing is learning, failure is fuel. Change the way that you look at it and use it like it becomes an asset.
I love that. I love that. I'm gonna write that down and put it on my computer over here. So,
Got one.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a t-shirt right there.
T-shirt.
That's t-shirt material. So just
Come to the shop at the swag store.
there it is. Yeah, soon to be available on the swag store. So, like we said, we split these things bounce into two things, right? We're talking about confidence here, right? As an ethos, but energy and bounce, right? Are you giving the people around you, whether it's your family, your inner circle, whatever it is, the best version of yourself? Or are you showing up as a victim, right? Are you bringing energy to the relationships, to the rooms, to the presentations, to the sales, whatever it may be that you're executing? How's your body language? Like, are you ready, man? Are you coming into the day with good body language, with good posture, man? Like, that's a part of your energy too. It gives off, man. Why do you think that, like a lot of these guys that are influencers and stuff are training and in good shape, not muscular necessarily, but in good shape, because they want to make sure that their posture is right. They want to make sure they're taken seriously. They want to make sure their energy levels are up. So make sure that everybody around you is getting the best version of you, man. Like, you can sleep when you get home. Like, you don't need to sleep through your day. Sleep when you get home. From a rebound standpoint, I think Cam wrapped it up perfectly with the statement that he just made about failure. Just understand that failure is opportunity, guys. Like, when it comes to rebounding, like, and who cares if people laugh? You're going to humiliate yourself from time to time if you're doing anything great. Like, and understand that. And the ones that are great aren't the ones laughing. I promise you, because they've lived it. The ones that are laughing are the ones that have never stepped out to try to do anything great. So don't be afraid of those people. It's just like they always say, the people that talk trash about you are behind you, right? Those are the ones that are below you or behind you. So why would you even listen to them, right? And that's what usually holds people back, is humiliation and fear. So with that being said, gentlemen, bring some energy. Come on, let's move forward in life. Bring some energy. Let's get a little bit of rebound. When we mess up, take it as an opportunity. Get active, baby, and get real.